Okay, so as we get into all of that is so helpful, and you just said that this, if there are seeds of bitterness and anger, and that it's very deep, that these don't work, these tools don't work, and so this is a great segue um, into these like categories of friendships or relationships. It could be anything. We were just talking about how this is specific to marriage or within a marriage relationship, but there are also relationships like friendships or partnerships or even relationships within the family unit, parents, siblings, so on. So I think a lot of these things can also be, that is like even the example you gave us is perfect, even just within a relationship with a friendship, is expressing your needs, and how we can, even when somebody comes to us and they come to us about something that we have maybe hurt them with, is coming with that James perspective of, hearing, listening, being slow to speak and slow to anger. And so I created these like 4 categories just out of my own experience and also hearing other people talk. But the first one is this like newlywed or new relationship. You're kind of coming into this relationship. I call it like, you have like hearts for eyes, and I immediately go to like those old school cartoons where it's like, they have like hearts for eyes for each other and they're just deeply in love, or it's a new relationship, whatever it might be. And they just can't get enough of each other. What would you tell somebody who's in that situation or in that like stage of relationship?
Yeah,
That's a romantic stage.
yeah, romantic, newlywed.
The euphoria. You forget faults easily. One expert said it's a brain thing, and it's called suspension of negativity judgment.
We were in our honeymoon, romantic phase,
Yes.
out in Carmel.
Yeah.
After along the coast, from the marriage in L.A. all the way up to Carmel. I mean, what can be more romantic, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, um, once we got to the place, but the next morning, after our initial night together, the next morning, uh, she got mad at me. Like, what's
What is this?
wrong? What is
Everything,
this
this
all
is
about,
bliss.
man?
I was hurt. When he
Well,
says mad,
I didn't know you
kinda
were hurt, but you were obviously upset,
Yeah, I was upset.
right?
I didn't say anything because that was
Yeah,
a problem that I have. I didn't know how to voice myself.
right, right. That's a perfect
And then
example
you
of how you
asked me,
start,
yeah.
and you're in this romantic phase, nothing can go wrong, and then I did something to upset you, right? And I didn't know what it was. You know what it was? It was that we were watching this old movie about the beach. What's it? The
Women wearing bikinis.
bikinis,
But
like
I just had
the beach.
sex for
What's
him
it?
for the first time. I gave my
But the
body the
Yeah,
night
but the
before.
point being,
But it
to
was my
me, yeah, to
insecurity.
me it was so silly. We're
Exactly.
not talking thongs or something like that.
Not
It was like
Yeah.
bikinis, for God's sake, from way back in the 50s.
I know.
But I had no clue what
Yeah.
happened here, right? So that that's an example of when you first start, first first kind of like argument, and how to.
Yeah.
I had no clue how to fix that. I had no idea,
Yeah.
So,
Her question
what do you
was,
say? How do you address?
well, when they're on that stage, it's like, if they ask, because
Yeah,
Joe and I were thinking, if they're in that stage, let them be in that stage.
Yeah. Right.
And if they ask, hey, is this what marriage is all about? Well, there are different stages,
Yeah.
you know?
yeah. But what they need at the very beginning is, just be a learner. Suggest
Perspective.
suggest books, suggest things that they can read. That's how we started. Mentors in your life that you can talk to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
it is.
unless you've had, I would throw in here, unless you had a premarital coaching to prepare you, where you learn some of the concepts right?
Yeah.
It would
I
be
always
a
tell
different
people put your
story.
seatbelt on.
Yeah, that's good.
I
Put
love
your
that.
seatbelt
See,
on.
that's it.
Because it's
That's
kind of
it.
like, it's fun. Right now,
Yeah.
you're having a great time, but also
Put your
there's going to be
seatbelts
some
on.
times that are going to
Yeah.
come up, and be aware that
Yeah.
that there are going to be some bumps in the road,
Yeah.
and they might be pretty big
Yeah.
bumps. You might crash your car a couple
Yeah.
times.
Those initial images of us, pictures of us back in those early 20s, man, nothing can go wrong. It
I
was
know.
beautiful.
He's
I look so
perfect.
handsome.
Yeah.
She looks so great.
Beautiful.
But man, I married a
And,
real
you know,
person.
Right?
It's so
And
funny.
she married a real guy.
You know, he's so steady and chill.
Yeah.
And she's so full of love. And then later, when you're in the awakening stage, is that stage, that weary and tired-eyed face, you realize, man, he's boring. He doesn't even talk. He's like, he doesn't want to do anything. And then he's like, man, she's so impulsive.
Yeah.
She's so like, she just wants to do everything at one time.
Yeah. I remember when we first got married, we were on our honeymoon too. We had a similar experience, and he had no clue what was wrong. And we had just we went to Cancun, and we went into this, I can't remember what it's called. It's like it's kind of like a outdoor, like, swimming hole type place. And it has a lot of vegetation around it and stuff. And I didn't want to jump into the water because it literally looked like something was going to come out and bite me, right? And so I'm terrified.
What is it, like a cenote?
Yeah,
Those
it's like
cave
yeah,
wells?
kind of like
Uh-huh.
something like that. He pushed me in with his foot, just a boom, and I was like,
No. That is
"You're
so
my
Roger.
protector. You are supposed to, like, I married you to protect me. To, like, you should have jumped in first." And he just was like. He's like, well, I was just joking with you. And I'm like, that's not a joke.
That is
like, that's
such-
not a joke. But that was our first, like, I remember the first, like,
Oh, man.
being, but that's totally Roger. It was a Roger
Yeah.
thing to do, but I had not experienced
thought
that.
that was
He thought it was
fun
funny.
and
I'm like, so
funny.
you married me to, like torture me? Like, that was horrible. I was crying. It was so funny. I was also like 21. So it was also
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and you know, I don't want. I want to go back. I don't want to forget. What first shows up for a guy for me in that moment was, I have no clue.
yeah, exactly. You had no
I'm
idea.
totally dumb. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. But the second thing that needs to show up is that empathy. That okay, even though I don't word it, I need to be empathetic.
Right.
But somehow to connect with the fact that, okay, I did something here.
Yeah.
And I have to be willing to, to change something,
Yeah.
learn something, adjust to something new, because I never lived it before.
Right. Right.
And you
Right.
did.
Yeah, and I did.
Actually, because
Yeah.
I think you said, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
turned it off, and
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
good.
So
Yeah. Roger did the same thing. I mean, now I don't think he would do the same thing. He'd be like, "You're fine."
let me do this again.
But you know,
Bam!
girl, suck it up.
I know, but
You're a
I
big
think,
girl.
I think you're right. Like, those are clues. Like, our spouse or our partner is giving us clues to what is maybe harmful for us, that we think may be the opposite of that. Is kind of, amusing to us.
Yeah.
But it's those clues of, like, be empathetic to me. I need
I
your
just crossed the
empathy.
boundary.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And okay,
So
now
those
I
are
understand.
good, like, in this heart-eyed phase, to be aware and not to be so blinded by the newness of it, but that there are messages that are being communicated on how to treat me in the future.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
I like that. So all right, so on to the second one, which is that weary and tired-eyed phase. And these are, like, typically parents of little kids, or maybe you're working a lot, you're in your
Okay.
career, overcommitted, which is probably, I would say, 90% of our society. But specifically in that stage of, like, you've been married or together for 5 to 10 years, and things have changed quite a bit since you were newly married, and maybe just feeling weary and tired. I think for my experience has been that those are the times where a lot settles in, and I think is the most important stage, because I think a lot can get lost in those years where you're still trying to find yourself and what works and the rhythm of life, but also that you kind of lose sight of each other. Other things become, they take precedence.
And you start to substitute, right? Priority relationship for other relationships.
Yep.
And you can build a pattern, right? That is
Yeah.
hard to come back from,
It is.
you know, those patterns.
Yeah.
I have a couple just recently that she decided to walk out of the marriage.
Yeah.
And they've got a 16-year-old and a
Mm.
younger 10-year-old, you know.
Mhm.
And it just seemed like a real good couple.
In the beginning.
But, you know, this weary-eyed face, owners of businesses or her doing her thing over here and him on the other side of it. So you lose sight of each other, right?
Mhm.
And somehow you need to pull the reins back and make, you know, stop.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
you know, but sometimes couples are beyond that. They're like, they don't think there's any way to fix it. They lose the hope. And it's so much easier to walk out of that relationship, you know.
Yeah.
And that breaks our hearts
Oh, yeah.
True.
because it is
Yeah.
fixable.
Yeah.
What I
But you have to
would,
take responsibility.
yeah, what I would encourage when couples go through that state is they definitely need to get support outside of the marriage. We did. There's just no way you're going to do it without that. You need to go to therapy, get a marriage coach, you know, join a church and attend classes. Because it is a difficult period, and it's a period where your differences really it surfaces. What attracted you in the beginning, oh, I love him, he's so this and this and that, that same thing that you admired about him in the beginning when you see no fault is the one, it will be the thing that's going to irritate you the most.
So true.
And
I love that you
so
said
what
that.
a lot of people don't, they don't make it. They can't get past accepting the differences, and that's when you need help, you need support. That's when communication, conflict resolution should be something that you master, because you can get to a point where you not only accept the differences, but you appreciate the difference. You know, instead of like, oh man, I can't stand the way he does this, and you make him wrong, and you want to control her or him, and you want to change them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
and
I would do that with, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what
Yeah.
we can insert in here
Yeah.
is self-healing.
I was
Exactly.
just thinking
because
that.
we
Yes.
this is what we're all that junk from our past.
Yes.
You know, have been predisposed to be or behave in a particular way, and that's where it shows up.
Yeah.
And in my case, I'm a son of an alcoholic,
Yes.
so I had to face that reality. And that was showing up
Yeah.
during this day.
Yeah.
It was showing up.
Yeah.
You know.
You were pretty macho when I married him.
Yeah, and also pretty numb.
Yeah.
You know, unable to feel, unable to be expressive.
He was an avoidant. He didn't want to,
Yes. Yeah.
deal with conflicts. He
Yeah.
would just go into a cave
Yeah.
for days.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah,
is
I think that's really important is to work on individual. I remember seeing somebody, I don't know why we were counseling these people, not counseling, but we were like trying to help in any way we could, but it really came to the point where it was like, you guys need to get your own counseling. You really do need to heal within yourself first.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with Roger and I, is that as we have worked on our individual healing, it has begun to heal
Yeah.
our marriage
Yeah.
in ways that we didn't
Right.
think was going to happen.
Yeah. I remember one time telling Joe, I need a counselor. And
Yeah.
he didn't believe in counselors. Could you believe that? He thought, it's like, no, you
Yeah.
just need to pray more, read the Bible more. And And I remember telling him, you know what? I'm sick.
Mm.
I'm sick. I
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
see a counselor
Mm-hmm.
because I was abnormal. I was dysfunctional in a way that I was too submissive.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of lost who I am. I didn't know who
Yeah.
I was. I grew up, I was told you do not ever argue, you never express your feelings to an adult. That's the Filipino culture. Your older cousin, your older brother, your uncle, your grandpa can molest you, can beat you up, and you say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the
Yeah, it's
culture
a
in the
culture. Yeah.
Philippines.
Yeah.
And so when I got married to him, and then, you know, women are saying, wives, you need to submit to your husband, that was like confusing.
Yeah.
And so, but it wasn't until I started getting counseling, I healed, and my persona changed.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to appeal to my husband, address issues, and then he ended up wanting to see my counselor because he saw the change in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't a change of you got to change, Joe, but he saw some sense of respect
Right.
in me, and some changes that caused him to be curious and like, wow, something's going on with Caroline. I want that.
That
And-
also requires a lot of self-awareness from you, though,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine that for most people, you know, you're either resistant to the change that you see, or you embrace it and you say, wow, I see something different. I want to come along that. And so I think it really does. It's a lot of self-awareness too of the other person.
I'll never forget when you first saw Dr. Leidy, because you forget a lot. You came up to me and you said, Caroline, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. I'm going to be a changed man. I don't know what the heck you talked about in that session, but
Yeah.
you know, that was the beginning of healing for both of us. But it took time because even though we were changed on the inside, we were still under the umbrella of a very legalistic
Yeah.
religious community.
Yeah.
You know, we had no clue at that time.
No.
And sense
Yeah.
of, I want to say that
Yeah.
you and I were discussing on the way to this podcast about the generational curses, or we can call it another way, the dysfunctional setting that we were brought up in, and how that kind of marks you, and so you live out that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But it's sick, you know, and but we had no clue that we were changing, transforming. There was transformation happening, and so all the resources, you know, the psychologists that helped us, it was part of that transformation. So that how we had the curse or generational is that we don't have a model. I don't have a legacy of a God, you know, real committed, functional, healthy grandfather. So I didn't have any of that. I didn't have that even in my own dad, you know, whom I love dearly now is still alive, you know, but we broke that off, man. We broke it. We broke it, and we established a new pattern of living.
Yeah.
And all the resources helped us to start a new legacy.
A new legacy,
You
build a
know,
new
so
legacy.
so that our kids don't have to repeat it.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought that
Yeah.
was important.
Yeah.
During this stage, maybe that shows up, and you realize, hey, wait a minute.
Hey, yeah.
I'm dragging something here.
Yes, exactly.
And I need to do something with
I don't
this
want to. I don't want to
bag.
be like my dad. I don't
Yeah.
want to be like my mother. And
so yeah, that's
yeah.
that's so
why
important.
I responded to you.
right.
The best way you can hurt me, get back at me, is to say,
Oh man.
and again, I honor my
And
dad
I
today.
did.
But
I
she would
can
say,
count it with my fingers.
She would
in
say,
47,
you are just like your dad.
in 47 years, I must have said it 5 times because I knew that
But it
was
is
the one thing
impactful. It's
that I
not
needed
like-
to
Yeah.
tell him to make
wanna
him
be like my
realize
Yeah.
you remind me of your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was looking at like these stages
categories,
and
next stage.
I feel like these two, that communication style that you were talking about is probably perfect.
Yes.
Right. But these next two I feel like may need something different.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, just based on what
Crisis.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So the third one is fire-eyed phase. This anger, bitterness. They've completely lost sight of each other. They may not even care about the other person anymore. They may just be like, I'm done. I'm out. But mean it.
Yeah.
Not just say it, but really mean it.
Oh, we've had those.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That is
we've
a
had
hard
those.
one.
We've had those in our office.
Yeah, but those
that's-
are very hard because
and they're the ones that need long sessions.
Yeah.
At least 10. If they can put aside the feeling, and if they can say, you know what, I can't stand her, he can't stand me, but we made a vow, and so we're gonna try to make it work, and so we're going to commit to sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've had that.
Right. Now I would say there are some situations where you're dealing with like narcissists, or where you're dealing
Adultery,
with you're dealing with some very
abandonment,
big,
abuse,
heavy, yeah.
physical abuse.
heavy offenses.
yes,
Yeah.
heavy
Right.
offenses,
And-
or
and yeah, they have caused deep wounds,
Wounds.
and it's very hard to bounce back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There has to be a greater value.
Mm-hmm.
They say when you want to resolve conflict, you need two things. Number one is you need to value yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to represent yourself. This I'm not
Yeah.
accepting that way of living.
Just like you did.
I'm not
Yeah.
doing that anymore.
I remember that.
But the second thing is that there's something in this relationship that is valuable to you.
Yes.
Otherwise
us.
you say,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yeah.
We're done here,
Yeah.
but you say, well, there's something here that holds you back
Yeah.
from exiting out, So there's got to be that greater value.
Yeah.
And so then you're willing to then come in a coaching, a therapy session to deal with those deep roots. But the big item here is going to be
Are they
trust has
Yeah.
been broken
Lost.
and lost.
And
And
needs
trust
to
is not
be-
easy
Yeah.
to
be
recuperate.
earned?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
So
And the valuing yourself may have to begin with where we were just a couple minutes ago with the
Yeah.
counseling and getting help.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Separate.
sometimes you have to separate.
And the big concept
it's
here,
like,
and
I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna put up with this. I love you so much. I'm gonna leave you. Think about what you're doing.
and this is where we bring
Yeah.
that couples don't need couples therapy in that moment. They need individual therapy. Each one has to get well.
And
right?
we've had that. And then they
Yeah.
ended up getting married.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't they?
Or they were
The,
unwilling.
the most recent marriage that we
Sure,
had.
Sure.
And he met with you for a year almost.
Yeah,
And then they ended up getting married.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when there's an unwillingness of one of the partners,
Yeah.
then it's
Then
done.
It's,
Pretty
Yeah.
much
it's done. And
It takes both.
we've had couples that ended up in divorce in the 46 years, at least 3, and it was actually we recommended it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say that the big thing that you put into this segment here is forgiveness. Once you get through all over the emotions and you get some new knowledge or life examples, then maybe that both of them are willing to say. And we used to do this with couples and conferences, so we do a forgiveness piece. Remember?
Yeah.
That would be like how we ended a conference. It's with a forgiveness piece, and being able to express,
Yeah.
hey, this is how you hurt me. This is what I was feeling, but I'm willing to forgive you.
Yeah.
And sometimes couples, partners are not ready to forgive, and that's okay, but the process has to start. But without releasing that partner from responsibility and really truly forgiving, there's no healing.
Yeah.
Right? There's no healing. But and I've seen the victory, but it's taken months.
Yeah.
In
It takes,
these
I would,
type
a
of
deep
couples.
commitment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deep.
These
Yeah.
couples,
Yeah.
and there's up and down, or there's something that has not come to the surface. I remember one couple, right? She caught him traveling to another country and being unfaithful, right? And then, okay, we thought we dealt with that hard piece, that session. Next time, she's weeping and crying because something else surfaced. Why did you not say that before? Fear of rejection, mainly fear,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it takes a lot of work to repair.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know.
I think that's that piece of doing individual therapy is so important because
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
learn too a lot about yourself.
Right.
Like why do I attract this, or why am I okay with this, or what about
Yeah.
me has created this reciprocation from this person too. And that's big. That's like that's some bigger work that has to be done. Yeah.
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 And I admire especially women because mostly a lot of cases I've seen or we've seen, the women is the victim, the man is the offender.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I admire. I say, oh my gosh, I can just see them, how deeply hurt they are, and for them to be willing to stick it out,
And forgive.
session after session after
And
session,
forgive.
and forgive,
And then,
and hope
yeah.
that this man is going to change.
Oh,
You know,
I was just talking
a
to one lady. I saw her at the store, and the man was committed, adultery and stuff. And she tells me, Caroline, it's so true what you said. The guy is more spiritual than me now. He just loves on me like crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
She could have left him,
Yeah.
but she chose not to. But she could have, but she chose not to.
Yeah.
he was very lucky.
Yeah.
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 Okay, yeah, that's good. And then this last phase is kind of that, like, I call it the yellow rosed eye phase, because yellow roses are friendship, where you're like roommates. You've lost all passion for each other or for the relationship. And it's really just an existing, and that could be for existing for kids who are currently in the home. It could be existing because you're scared of what's out there. I know a lot of people, especially recently, this has been a very common thread, is that they'll just stay in the relationship because the fear of going out and being alone or having to deal with the current dating situation or relationship situation is so daunting that it's better just to stay.
Yeah. Wow. That's a tough one. What would we advise? Again, there's no cookie cutter, because every situation is different.
Right.
If I find myself in a situation like that, again, it's like I would get therapy to explore why is it that I've allowed this to happen, and then I would be the change. And when I'm saying change, I would just create a mystery, and I would allow the opposite person to see that, wow, I'm living life. I don't need you. I love you, but I really don't need you to make me happy, and therefore I'm gonna start living. And we've seen that happen again, where the woman just started to drop the blame game and the victimization, and instead she found this new sense of you know what, I'm going to make it happen because I'm worthy of it. She heard me speak in a conference, and she came up to me, and she was very resistant in the beginning. She came up after 3 days and says, Caroline, you spoke to me. I didn't understand what we were saying, but it made sense, and I'm going back with a new heart. A year later, I was at another conference, and she said, Caroline, can I give a testimony? I just want you to know, the last time I saw you, I was that lady that spoke and gave a testimony. Guess what? I went back. I became a new woman. My husband came back to me on his knees and begged me to take him back, and now we're serving God together. Remember? That was
cool.
yeah. And so I think that when it's at that stage, if there's going to be any hope, one person has to be the change, like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The literature, Christine, and for those who are listening, our audience, I think all agrees. They might put it in different, like you came up with these categories.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. But the different well-known writers write about the reality of these stages, right? For example, Rosberg, Divorce-Proof Marriage, talks about you start with the dream, then you come. This is reality. You have disillusionment, you know, and then you got discouragement,
And that's
and
like,
right there, something is happening already, right? And the
it
couple
fits
may be
your category.
yeah, and the couple may be losing something already. They're not practicing the
Mm-hmm.
skills. They're not doing what they promised they would do at the vow, at the romantic phase, right? So they began to distance from each other emotionally, right? Then they disconnect, right? Maybe they, I don't know, they sleep in different
Well,
places.
that's
to
that
back,
stage that she
right?
was talking about
Friendship
right now.
stage.
The,
The
yellow
roommate.
rose
Yeah.
eye phase.
Yeah, then Rosberg talks about discord. All you do is fight. The four horsemen that John Gottman talks about show up here, right? Criticism,
Defensiveness.
despair, defensiveness,
And then
stonewalling,
and
you
then
know,
contempt.
contempt. Yeah, you cut down the other partner.
yeah.
By this time, man, this marriage is
It's
in
gonna
deep,
end up in a
is in
divorce.
deep trouble.
But when those four things show up, they're called the four
Horsemen.
horsemen of apocalypse.
Right. You know, this happens.
It's
So
it's more likely that the relationship is going to end.
yeah. So then what happens is now there is an emotional divorce.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a legal paper, but you're already way apart
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah.
You know, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
You know, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
It's very hard to
Yeah.
to come back from.
That's
that.
why you have to come see
And
you guys.
you know what's,
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but that one is equally as bad as what you had mentioned, where there's no passion, you're like roommates, or what did you
Roommates,
say here? The yellow.
yeah.
Yellow rose
Yellow
eye
rose
face,
eye
Yeah,
face,
where-
yeah.
right?
Just friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Another thing I
Doing
read,
life.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just friendship. You
It's
just you see that person
it's
as like a
just
friend.
different style. It's not a volatile
Yeah.
style
You
of relationship, but it's you give up
Right.
and you just kind of
you've kind of relinquished any
Yes.
sort of
and it's like, oh, you know,
hope. Yeah.
yeah, we'll just live together. We're roommates, and you know,
Yeah.
you died and fine, and I die and fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Why even stay together?
Well, because I think there's fear. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
now there is a lot of what I'm finding with people that I know that are getting divorced now. It's hard. It is not easy out there.
Yeah.
Dating is like, it's like, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, and that's why more than ever they're saying that we need marriage and
Yes,
family life
yes.
coaches. And if people would just hire marriage and family
Joe and
life
Caroline.
coaches, we constantly continue. We never gave up on that.
Yeah, because you never stop being students.
Yeah, you
Of life.
evolve. You
You- yeah.
evolve, and
You
issues
never
come
arrived.
up. Yeah,
And you have that perspective.
Yeah.
So there are,
Yeah, I just want to make one
Yeah.
mention here too. I think
Yeah.
it's important because you brought up the word. I think it's there's no, what did you say? No lost
Mm-hmm.
of passion. Very interesting. In another piece of literature that I use with premarital counseling is doctors Les and Leslie Parrott,
Mm-hmm.
saving your marriage before it starts. And they introduce a concept here called what is your love? Can you identify your love style? And it's a form of a triangle. And the three sides of that triangle are passion, intimacy, and commitment, right? And when you got these three things together, he calls it consummate love. When these three things come together, you have a marriage that has been really consummated in true love. I don't think that happens with young people. I think a stage of your life. And this doesn't happen automatically.
no, it's
You got
it
to go
happens
through
in the
the-
maturity stage.
Yeah, you got to go through the
Yeah.
turbulence.
Yes,
And-
that
and
that
you-
middle stage.
You have to do the adjustments and
yeah.
new tasks and all that, right?
To reach to the
To,
it's called
to
the
get
marital
to this point. So
the maturity stage.
So this is
yes.
the goal.
this is
That
the
is
goal.
the
Doesn't,
goal.
you don't
is
start
that
with
your
this.
love is
Yeah.
fluid
And-
and if
yeah.
it flows in these three areas,
Yeah.
right? You committed. You're committed. You were there to stay. But you're there to stay, but you have to add to that. You also want to have that relationship of intimacy with each other.
Yeah.
And not sexual. What is it?
It's-
68% of men think that when we
It's-
talk intimacy, it's sex.
Sex,
Sex,
and it's
sex,
not.
yeah.
And we're talking connection, right?
Yeah.
We're talking the date. We're talking the daily dialog We're talking, dreaming together. We're talking vacation in Greece or whatever,
And-
or walking.
and feeling
Yes.
each other's hurts.
Yes.
And being there for each other.
Yeah.
Right?
So that intimacy, and then the passion, of course, because then he contrasts and he says, this is what you call romantic love, okay, which is basically you got passion and intimacy, but no commitment, right? Then you got foolish love, a lot of passion, and you're there because, like I always say, I don't know if this applies to everybody in the audience, right? But when a guy gets what he wanted, that's the passion part. He drops the commitment. Right? He's not willing to commit. Right? What for?
Right.
It's already got the main thing. Right? For a guy, I'm not trying to be general, but I'm speaking from reality,
Yeah.
from experience. That's how guys think. Right? Okay. Okay. So the foolish love is there, but there's no real commitment that says, I'm going to be just with you. Right? And then there's a companionship love. This is what you're talking about. There's intimacy, there's commitment, but there's no passion, right? You don't have Google eyes, for each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't spot each other across the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
And wait, I have to say
That's-
this.
yeah.
Ruby keeps saying Caroline because we were in a Bible study together, and it's on Zoom. There's like 12 of us, and she says, Caroline, I notice how you just adore your husband. I go, really? He goes, yeah. You're always wanting to sit next to him. You're always like putting your hands around him. And we went to a conference together for a week, and it's amazing how she saw that, and it's so true. I had planned to go to Cozumel for a week, and Joe didn't say anything until not too long ago. What am I going to do without you? 7 days without you. What am I going to do? And I told him, honey, go to Nicaragua.
yeah,
And now he's so happy because, he's going to go to Nicaragua and do ministry work there.
because it's
Because we're there.
because you're not going to be there.
I know, because I
Yeah.
think that's where we're there. I think our relationship now is at that mature level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've stormed
yeah.
the trials.
But let's go
yeah.
back to what she's asking.
Yeah.
At this stage.
Sorry
right?
for the.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
where the passion is lost.
Yeah,
Wow.
you were in this book.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
know I wasn't
yeah.
in this book, but the passion is lost. If there's, though they say if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
The will is very important.
Yeah.
You have to be willing first to recognize that this is where we're at,
Yeah.
Yes.
and again, is this relationship worth it? Do I really want it? Right? Will and then you got to want it too.
Yeah.
Desire and the will.
Yeah.
But if that's not even there,
Yeah.
yeah, once I heard some top conference speakers discussing, and the one man asked that, is it ever right for a couple to divorce? Right? And I would agree with this. We don't want that divorce to happen, right? We want them to do the work. But sometimes
work.
it's just not possible.
It's not. Yeah.
Because there's no desire and no
Yeah.
will to do the
Uh-huh.
hard work, So,
you can't.
why
Excuse me.
make each other miserable? You have to let go,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this, not everything ends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
happily ever
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
We hate that,
Yeah.
but that's the reality
Yeah.
of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to make the best to kind of break away and not be, hurt each other, and even the kids, So
I hope we answered that.
No,
I
you
hope
did.
we
I
answered
I
that.
think I just had kind of like a little bit of an aha moment of just that all of these stages, some of them are necessary in
Yes.
order to grow. in
Yes.
order to change us.
Yeah.
Because just like the quote that I said at the beginning, it's not always about unbecoming, but it's becoming. And so part of the
Exactly.
becoming process
Is
is
to-
learning
to
and being
unbecome.
a student of your spouse or your partner.
Right,
and
right.
and
Yeah.
it's almost like you
Right.
kind of have to have that googly eyed phase so that you have something to go back to
Yeah.
and to say, remember when?
Yes.
And to be able to capture that, you have to have those moments,
Yeah.
where you kind of lose sight of each other. Because if you didn't have the googly eyes stage or the heart-eyed stage, then you won't remember
Yes.
why we were in this in the first
Yeah.
place.
And
Then when you're in that like angry stage, it's like, look at all the things, all the places, all the things we've been through, all the different obstacles and all of these different, it's almost like it's I don't want to say necessary, but that wherever you're at in your relationship, for those who are listening, that there's these stages are almost necessary
It
in
is.
growth.
And you have to shift perspective
Right.
to go back. Remember, you preached on that. We did a workshop, and you said go back.
Yeah.
To that was the first thing you said. Number one, go back. Do you remember?
Go back to your first love.
Go back to your
The
first
initial
love.
attraction. The initial
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
that's when we talk about, how do you go back to your first love? And then we create a scenario
Go
there.
back and to that.
Yeah, like
And then
exactly
do
what
the-
you said.
Do the first
Do the
thing.
things that you did in the beginning.
Right.
First thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do the first thing.
Yeah, that was
And that
another
comes
workshop
back.
that we did.
I want to say that I agree, and we both agree that for our audience, this is what you call the oneness principle.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's either two roads. You get this other road when you go in decline, and you ended up in emotional divorce, and then eventually legal divorce, right? Or you take the other road, which is go through this process, right? Figure it out, stay committed, right? And get to the end where you are one. It's the oneness principle.
Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
it's a lifetime, man.
Yeah.
It's not overnight.
Yes.
So yeah.
You
So
know,
it's
someone
important to
had
think
said
through
that
yeah.
siblings who fight a lot when they're young are the ones that end up being the closest. You know, it's and I'm thinking.
I hope
that,
that's true.
You know,
For my two
That's
younger
why-
ones.
That's why I'm thinking, can it be that because we stormed a lot of trials, but I think that there's a lot of couples and they talk about, oh, we went through this, we went through this, we went through this, and they're so bonded to each other.
Yeah.
The
so,
love is so strong.
a little piece of hope here. I think you and I are now co-creating. That's a concept from Dr. Leslie Parrott. We're co-creating, but hey, look at our tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the different stuff that when we're not co-creating, when we're, in deep,
Yeah.
in deep trouble,
Yeah.
right? But if you, again, take that attitude of, this is a commitment, this is a woman or the man that I want for my life, and then you're willing to forgive, or and move, and do the hard work.
Yeah.
Then you begin to
The
co-create.
hard work.
I
that's
love
the
that
key.
imagery, Joe.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
really, like just to, like the tail's tattered. There might be some missing pieces on that tail. It still
Yeah.
works though. It still works. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's still
Yes.
attached.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
not, it's
Yeah.
like I just love that imagery of really seeing, and there's like this beauty in it. There's
Yes.
a beauty in the tatter. There's a
Yeah.
beauty. It's like a reminder of where we've come from, what
Yeah.
we've endured together. And
Yeah.
like I just thought about that just in my own relationship, and there's a beauty to it.
There's
It really
stories.
is.
Stories
Yeah.
to tell.
Which is a perfect segue
And learn
into
from.
our final question, because we literally probably need to do it again.
Uh,
This is like, there's probably so much that we could delve deeper into, and but I think as we begin to sort of wrap this up, how is your the legacy playing out? Like how do you feel like legacy plays a role in all that you've done and all that you have worked through and experienced? I know you have 5 girls and they're all married with children, and or in relationships of some sort, or and some of them they haven't always gone exactly. And you've seen, and I know I've seen just the turmoil of relationship even within our own family, within people that we care about, and even within your own girls. But how has this legacy played a role in like all that you do and just your desire to like leave this legacy of
I can start. Caroline is very good in detail, but I'm just coming to my mind is that legacy is not your children being a copy of you. What do we call it when they a clone of you?
Yeah.
That's not legacy.
Yeah.
You know, because maybe you as a parent are trying to live your dreams through your kids, and we hear a lot about that. But legacy is about there's a definite imprint that you leave in your kids
Yes.
about the greater values,
Yes.
like the value of love, the value of family. You know, could be a value of education,
Value
Yeah.
of contribution,
Contribution
in the world.
in the world.
It's leaving.
living an impact. You know what I
leave-
mean?
Leaving an
How
impact.
that looks in their particular lives, that's what we take our hands off
Yeah.
and say
Yeah.
they're individuals and
Yeah.
they are who they are.
Yeah.
You know, and so I see legacy when I now I see my daughters doing a piece or podcast with you, or the things they do put on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know,
I think,
And I
we
see-
see our daughters. They
Yeah.
all are impacting
yeah,
the world. It's not
Yeah.
about making
and
money
they may not agree
Yeah.
and
with
being
us,
rich,
and they may not agree with
No.
us. In our home, they say,
and it's okay.
It's okay, Mom and Dad. I'm not taking with me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but
And
these
that's
other ones,
okay.
yeah.
The thing is
so
this,
legacy
is that
kind of like that.
Yeah.
like a legacy is what we pass down, right? And when we
Yeah.
got married, it was all about leaving a spiritual legacy of love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but our task was the biggest task that we had is how do we break this, generational curse? Where I come from was molestation within the family. I was molested by my grandpa. I was molested by my stepfather. There was divorce, some witchcraft there, some abandonment. We were flown to the Philippines and left there, and so there was that, and in Joe's situation there was, I don't want to say, but alcoholism and whatnot. And so and then the not knowing what does a loving family look like. Like, we didn't eat together as a family. In the Philippines we did, it was different there with the grandpa and uncles and all that, but we were not able to talk. We were just there to eat, But when we came here in the United States, we didn't eat as a family. You guys didn't eat in a dinner table. So what we did what we can do. We knew how. We did the best what we what we knew, but we missed a lot of things. There were things
Right.
that we didn't do because
And those we learned from other models
yeah.
of parenting that were not our own
Yeah,
parents.
but I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
yes.
Our daughters, we created an environment of love, and we had traditions. We served our community. We went on vacation and all that stuff.
Educational piece.
Yeah, there was that
Instill
education. We
education.
created an environment where our daughters can flourish in their talents and gifts. But there was a lot of hit and miss. But guess what? Our daughters get to do better than us because they didn't have to deal with what we didn't know. We didn't deal with. I don't know if I'm making sense.
You are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think so.
and to give our parents the credit, because I never blame my mom for who I was. As a matter of fact, I am who I am. I'm Dr. Caroline. I am an amazing life coach. I was an amazing teacher because of the experience that I had, it gave me the compassion to relate to broken people. And so when I think about my mom, she left me a legacy. The legacy my mom left me was that age is just a number. At the age of 60, she took up flying. And at the age of 65, I took up cycling. And when I'm going that mountain 34 miles an hour at my age, I think about my mom flying. My mom left a legacy of musical talent, you know, for Roger and I. I was a pianist for my husband, you know, for many years, and I know that my other siblings, the ones that are great in sales, they could sell, you know, ice to Eskimo. That's from my mother. That's from my mother. And my father didn't have an education, but the legacy he left me was get an education, get an education. So I am thankful for the legacy my parents left me. My parents, when they had they suffered World War II. So they did the best that they can.
Yeah, and I think that.
And your mom and dad,
Well, yeah,
look what they did.
I want to say,
Yeah.
for some of the hearers or the listeners,
Yeah.
this is again an ideal because in their case, they really have rotten parents.
They had
You know what I
rotten
mean?
parents,
So they have no
yes.
legacy to
Yeah.
draw
No,
back on.
No, and
But
yeah.
I want to say my story about my legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I had the hardest time with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always a negative and a blame,
Mm-hmm.
right? One day it clicked on me on a Father's Day, where I might have previous times as a public speaker said a negative comment about my dad, or made myself the victim. Oh, I didn't grab a dad to do this or whatever. But I realized that one day, I got to stop, you know, being so negative about my dad. Let me see, what is the legacy that my dad left me? And as I started to explore it and dig into it, it's 3 or 4 or 5 things
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
he taught me,
Yeah.
you know. I'll give you one real quick example. I remember my dad, I was like 13 years old, we were immigrants, and we didn't have a lot of money, and he didn't have a car, but I remember him coming from the market. He would take a bus,
Yeah.
and then he'd get off the bus. When you get off the bus, our house was just across the street, but he always had 2 bags of food for his family that he brought home, you know. And even though he was a drunk on the weekend sometimes, you know, stuff like that.
There's a lot of fights.
A lot of fights, a lot of emotional
Yeah,
instability.
in your home.
But that's one thing that I can look back and say,
Yeah.
my dad taught me the value of really being the provider for my family, in a sense of always being sure that my family's taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a big value.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
the love for sports, or,
Mhm.
you know,
And
just different
today,
things.
what I love about your dad, he buys every grandchild a gift
Yes, for
for
Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my mom, you know, at the latter stages of her life, she served us. She did stuff for her family.
Yeah.
And so,
So look back a
Yeah.
little bit on that,
yeah.
on those parents, not necessarily for their sake, but for your sake.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't gone to that, you know, that hurt and that all that stuff, all that
Yeah.
junk, is going to harm you.
Yeah.
They're
But-
going to go away. They're going to die,
Yeah.
but you're still here.
Yeah.
So a word to the wise,
Yeah.
you know.
But here's a
Bless
thought.
you.
Okay, so we leave a legacy, whether it's positive or negative, and whether we're intentional or not aware of
Mhm.
or aware of it.
Mhm.
And the amazing thing is that not only are we able to leave a legacy in this generation and leave a legacy for the future generation, but also impact the past generation. So we've impacted the past generation when we share Jesus with our aunties, our grandma, our grandparents. That's a legacy. We will one day see them in heaven. So to think that I can even impact the past generation to me is exciting. And today, we can still, even at our age, continue to leave a legacy, try to be what we weren't in the past, you know?
If I could add just one thing to that, I even think of that you are a piece of the legacy of every person that you touch. So every person that comes to you has been blessed by you in ministry. You become even a piece of that legacy as well, because change occurred because of the change in you.
Yeah.
And like, so the
That's great.
the feelers that you have out there, or the extension of your
Yeah.
legacy reaches beyond even just your own family.
Yeah.
And I even think of like, for our family on this side being the recipient as an in-law, but even the recipient, you know, what
The thousands
the
of
men
people
in our
that-
family
yeah.
have been able to be touched by you
Yeah.
because of the legacy that you're leaving behind that touches even my husband, which then touches my kids, which then touches my grandkids.
Yes,
And it's
exactly.
so the extension of your legacy is spread throughout.
It's
And I just
so
think of like
huge.
that, you know, that is just, I mean, I could.
Yeah, what a privilege, huh? What a privilege, you
Yeah.
know. And maybe the listeners can be left with a vision
Yeah.
of what they can build,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what they say when you die,
Yeah.
what are they going to say about you?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
What are your kids going to say up in that podium, right?
Yeah.
So, but just to have that hope again,
Yeah.
you know, be willing to transform, to be transformational, to do the work to change yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and impact the people,
People,
beneath you.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of us who are in desperate need of assistance from you guys, where can you be found? Where can our listeners reach out to you?
Caroline, RestoreConnection.com.
Yes.
RestoreConnection.com is our website.
Okay.
Our phone numbers are
Phone number is okay.
Yeah.
Phone number 626-215-7483 or 626-215-7484.
Okay, that's
That's
Caroline's.
her.
And then are you guys on Instagram?
We are on Instagram.
yeah, but
Mainly contact you through those means
Yeah, yeah.
first.
Those
Okay.
means,
all
and
right.
then probably through email.
Okay.
we've sort of taken a break from social media.
Okay. Perfect.
Mhm.
I love that. I do that once a year.
Yeah.
A month. No social
Yeah.
media. That's a great way to reconnect. Thank you guys
You you're
so
welcome.
much. It
Oh.
was just the biggest privilege to sit with
Thank
you
you.
and
You're welcome.
Thank
be
you.
with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.